Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you are. I am Catherine Mattice. I'm the founder and CEO of Civility Partners, and we're a consulting firm that focuses on building positive work environments through coaching and consulting and training. And I'm so happy today to have Felipe Cofiño. I always want to make sure I say names right, with me. And Felipe has been working in the world of HR, talent and development, and recruiting executives for 25 years. And I know you get focused on culture and employee wellness. And I love how you said that you call your home the Latino version of Full House. I love that. I love that show growing up. You've got a lot of people living there with you.
And animals too.
And animals too, and 2 dogs. I also have 2 dogs. So introduce yourself to us a little bit more, though. Tell us a little bit about your career and how did you get into kind of wellness and making sure that companies have great cultures?
Well, thank you, Catherine. Thank you so much for inviting me. I love this topic, and I'm so excited to talk to you about it today. I'm like she said, I'm Felipe Cofiño, and I've been in HR for the last 25 years. But I started my career, in retail and got into hospitality. And when I was in the operations of hospitality, I had probably one of the most amazing HR directors I'd ever worked for. And I say that because he was very real. He wasn't that overly diplomatic person that was like, well, you have to understand both sides, every story. Oh, well, you have to understand that your manager must have been having a bad day. That's why they screamed at you. Like, no, if it was wrong, it was wrong. And he called it out. And
Wow.
it was something that was impressive to see someone to do it professionally. But the other thing he did is that he fought for those underdogs. He fought for those unsung heroes that maybe didn't have a voice. And he did it in a way without making it about himself. He did it behind the scenes. He did things to make things right without making it, oh, look what I'm doing. And I just was so impressed with him. And I looked at him, I want to do what you do. I paint a halo over his head. The first time I was in his office, he had a dartboard on the back of his door. I'm like, do you put pictures of us up there and throw darts at us sometimes? And he's like, no, of course not. But it made me wonder.
That's funny.
But he had such a huge inspiration, and really got me to start thinking about career in human resources. So he actually helped me get in my first role. And it was really because I had found, this is actually a very short story, but there was one of the execs in the hotel that I overheard her actually saying that she was going to create a fake story about an employee and use that against them to promote them.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, am I in the soap opera? Is this real life? Is this like, am I being pranked? I didn't know. And I was in the copy room next to her office and she couldn't hear me. And so I went to him and the HR director and I told him what I heard. And what he explained to me was, all right, listen, I need you to understand something. She's my peer. So I can't just go right at her. I need to go by this the right way. You may not see everything I'm doing, but trust me to address it the best way possible. So I just stepped back and I didn't see anything happening. I was questioning, is he even acting on this? Is he even addressing this at all? Because I started hearing the rumor. The rumor had gotten out. And long story short, he ended up not only was able to stop it, he was able to address it and handle and hold that person accountable, that executive, for what they did. But he had to do it the right way. And so that got me into that job. And I got into HR. And I'll say, I took a pay cut to get into HR. I actually did because it was what I realized I wanted to do. I found out that there was something in me that was just driving me towards it. So I went to another Hyatt hotel in Virginia. I was working in Maryland and started my career as an HR admin. And from there, it kind of grew. I will say I met my wife at that hotel. So there was an additional benefit to that as well, a huge benefit. And from there, my career just grew in the hotel industry and to HR. And I will say companies out there that, whether big or small, the excuse of, oh, you have to start small and build a culture when you're small in order for it to be effective, or big companies can't have a good culture. Well, Hyatt proved that wrong. That's one thing I'll say that is absolutely phenomenal. For a 60,000 plus employee company, they had an amazing culture. And that's where I learned a lot about that. But then I, had an opportunity to get into banking. I had a degree in finance. It was something that I always had. My father was in finance. And I saw an opportunity to grow my career in HR into the finance world. And so I went into my first financial institution, and it was unique. I'll say that. The culture was definitely toxic. And it was something that it was from the top down, and it was been there for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
I tried so many things to try to implement things, and it just got shut down. And then the one thing they did phenomenally well, though, was their wellness program. And that's what I brought with me over to Signal, where I am now. So from there, I got a job at Signal, where I'm currently now the vice president of HR and talent development and branding. But what I always said is I had to go through hell sometimes to get to heaven. And because here I'm able to take everything that I've learned from all the companies, the good and the bad, and actually apply it. And we have a leadership team. They all came from toxic workplaces too. So when we had that epiphany, they said, wait a second, we are all in leadership of this company now. We all left our previous companies because it was toxic. We have a huge opportunity here to make this place never be toxic. And if it is, then we failed, because we know what it looked like. We know how it felt. So that's the great driver of supporting the culture without having to drive it. The employees drive our culture. So that's a little bit of my history of how I got to where I am today. But I'm very passionate about recruitment, workplace wellness, and workplace culture. Those are my top 3 ones, I would say.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me about some of the, I love case studies and kind of tangible. Tell me what you're doing. So how are you and those leaders there at Signal Financial really perpetuating your culture and making sure that the employees are thriving?
So, I'll say we started our culture committee, we called it. My CEO likes to call it the culture club. And for those of you who are old enough, it's like, I don't want us to be confused with, the pop rock group. I want us to have our own name. And so we like to have fun with that a lot of times.
We work with action teams. We call them culture committees, but we have had clients do that same thing. Yeah. We want to call it the culture club.
I'll say, I told you, I was like, you're going to have to dress up as Boy George and come in one day dressed up as Boy George if you keep on calling it that. And so we'll see. And you know what, knowing him, you never know. He surprises us sometimes, which leads to the culture. So we created a culture committee, and what we did was we basically created a committee because we had so many other committees for other things, wellness, for our membership, for our community. And we said, let's have one committee that drives the culture for the entire organization. And it's not just for the employees, it's for our customers, which we call members, and the community. And we make sure that everything we do gets the same support, the same marketing, the same financial support, volunteer support, all of that across the board. So whether it was a brand student event or a community event or an employee event, we all felt like, okay, everyone's kind of helping out and everyone's pitching in and we're getting the same support. So that's where it originally started. But what grew into it was having opportunities for us to do things collectively as a group, get to know each other. And, we really were trying to drive a lot about culture and inclusion and diversity. But what this team and the team of employees that we have on here are from all different levels of positions, all different backgrounds, nationalities, different industries they've worked in. So we're hearing all different perspectives, all different ideas from so many different, avenues of life. And so with that, they said, we want to do things that make people feel inclusive. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when you say, hey, this is a group about just this group, people that aren't in that group might not feel as comfortable. So they wanted to start off with doing fun events. Like we started doing dodgeball. We started doing happy hour events in person. This is all pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So let me clarify.
Dodgeball over Zoom is a little difficult.
Yeah. So pre-COVID, we started doing these events outside. So we had a weekly dodgeball thing. We also had a basketball team and I say team, a few of the guys got together and went out and played basketball every week. And it was just Signal employees playing together. We went to different events together. So it was baseball events, whatever it was. We had fun. And it was something that it really started showing how those relationships were growing and building. But then COVID hit. Mm-hmm. And we obviously had 2 challenges. 1, maintain the culture, and 2, maintain that connection with our employees during the pandemic. So we did training right off the back, which was great. Our CEO was very forward thinking. He got everyone laptops before the pandemic even hit, just in case, just in case. And thank God he did. So we were able to hit the ground running with training. But what the culture committee said was, let's start doing things for the teams at night. And I said, do you think people really want to come at night? And I said, let's try. So the first time it only was maybe 5 people, but we did a happy hour event. And we just did a happy hour, just come casually. And 5 people showed up. So we did it again 2 weeks later. 7 people showed up. And the third one, which was the interesting one, about 10 people showed up. And at this point, everyone was getting comfortable talking. And as an HR person, my red flag started going up because they started talking about social injustice, politics, and religion. And I'm like, okay, this could go south very quickly, or it could be really wonderful. And so I let it go. And it was actually magical that the employees started talking to each other in a way of trying to understand. They were seeking to understand versus implying what they knew. And people were so generous about educating people. And it was interesting to see how two people from the same culture and same background had two different perspectives to share. And so we really were opening up so many doors. So that grew. And then what happened next out of that was we started they went to have cultural awareness this year, 2022. They said, can we do something new this year where we have cultural awareness on a monthly basis, but go deep dive into it, not just highlight one, culture a month. Like, there's so many cultures that are out there and so many things to celebrate. Well, so instead of just, celebrating, for example, in March, Women's History Month, we also celebrated Persian New Year. We also celebrated, I'm getting the months mixed up. Let me say May, because I remember May for better. May we did Asian Pacific Islander Month. We did Jewish American History Month. We did I'm forgetting them now. I apologize, but
that's okay. I'm sure I know there's a lot, but let's see what we're doing today. A lot of different things.
Yeah, and today what we have for May right now is we are recognizing Pride Month. We're recognizing Loving Day, which is actually a very interesting thing for people who don't know about Loving Day. It happened here in Virginia, so it's local for us. It's when interracial marriages became legal. And the interesting thing is that one of our culture committee employees, she lives out in Virginia, and she said, hey, by the way, I went and I found a church where they got married because it's near my home. And I found their gravesite. I met somebody there at the gravesite that I actually knew from a long time ago, and they're going to introduce me to their children. So she's going to really learn about the history of this family and bring it back and share it. But we also we have all these topics that we're going to talk about. It's also Caribbean Heritage Awareness Month. And so we do these on the live town halls with all our staff and everyone. And we have different people from the committee volunteered for different topics each month. And they do their research. And it's a lot about, did you know this? Like during Women's History Month, did you know that women couldn't get credit cards without a man signing for it until 1974? I didn't know that. Crazy. When we had Scottish Heritage Month, I didn't know that Scotland had over 700 islands. And just small facts, but some are so amazingly educational. Some are, wow, I didn't realize that was happening. And so we're really just opening these doors. And then we're getting employee testimonials, employees that want to talk about their own heritage. So we did have someone talk about Jewish American History Month. We talked about different topics and different cultures. So we have, and we don't make that mandatory. That's something that if you want to, great. We'd love for you to do it. If you don't want to, that's fine. And then all the other topics throughout the month that we have that people forget about maybe, and as small as something as simple as Father's Day to there's African American Music Month this month. We send out emails with links about events happening locally that people can attend to. Articles that people can learn. Articles that people can really learn more about that topic. So that's one of the things that we're doing today, and that's been really working well because at the end of this month we do a Jeopardy game, and because we have a happy hour mid-month, at the end of the month we do a Jeopardy game, and the Jeopardy is tied into that culture topic. So when we did Black History Month, for example, we had employees that were saying, oh well, we're here to make sure we do our ancestors proud. And then you had other people that, from different cultures. Well, one of the people from the other team was Latino. And all of a sudden he came out of the gate running and he was answering questions left and right. And then the other team came back and crushed them. But what happened was that the other team, they were impressed at how much this man that was Latino understood their culture. They had a newfound respect for him. And that opened up doors to conversation about, I didn't even know that about this, or did you know about this? And they started having opening. So these wonderful conversations about learning about each other and really opening doors and finding commonalities in our cultures that we didn't know we had has been so wonderful. So I'll stop there because I could go on a lot about this.
This is, so what you're doing is creating opportunity for conversation so that people can get educated about each other. And it sounds like because of your culture, people do it very open-mindedly, if that's a word, where they are interested in learning and having a good time learning. And that's inclusivity. That's what, and the more you do that, the more people feel safe to share some crazy work idea that just might work, or tell someone, I felt hurt when you said this yesterday. Can we talk about it? And so you're just doing some really, really cool things. It sounds like we do have some questions that I'd love to ask you from the audience.
Yes, please.
We start up at the top. I know we had a couple before we even came on here. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. Stacia says, how do you make everyone feel included in the culture when you have a large temp population and when you also have office staff separate from warehouse staff? So you have different groups. How do you make people feel included?
That's a great question, because it is a challenge, and it's like you're never gonna make everyone happy.
Sorry, let me open the door so the dog.
I might have to let my dog in too when he hears your dog barking.
That way we can talk without the interruption of my dog.
No worries. But that is a huge challenge for a lot of people. One thing off the back is survey. Ask people when's the best time that they would like to get together if they have interest. We fluctuate between Wednesday and Thursday evenings for our signal event nights, we call them, because that's when they said they liked it the best. I thought Fridays might be better, but they said Wednesdays and Thursdays because some people work late on Thursdays and others work late on Wednesdays. Some had personal obligations on Thursdays, but not on Wednesdays. So what we found was, okay, in the beginning, like I said, we only had 5 to 10 people showing up. Our last one had like 35, 45 people show up. So it varies depending on the day. I think the other part was people were talking about it. People were saying how much fun they had. And again, I'm a video nut and photography video nut. So, I'm taking pictures and recording, our Jeopardy games, sending out little clips and about the fun we had and some of the silliness we had. And that gets people attracted to it. That people like, it's a little bit of FOMO sometimes. I'm not trying to create FOMO, but It's like, hey, they had fun. I thought that was gonna be stupid. Actually, I might try that. Okay, great. And so that's getting people to talk about it, asking them when they would like to have it. And then also, again, maybe calling them out. When we have, you said about temps, that's a challenge. When we have new hires, I make sure that I tell everybody, hey, we have a new hire named Carmen today, actually. So I'm like, hey, Carmen, please welcome Carmen. She's a new hire. She just joined us today, and everyone's, oh, welcome, Carmen. Where are you from? And it got a chance for her to share a little bit about herself. And we do have new hires introduce themselves on the live calls, but they don't get as much engagement. Here, when you're on a call, a Zoom call, whatever, you're able to actually see the person, the reaction, and get say, oh, I was wondering who the new hire was. So the same with the temps. I think bring them in, and when they're there, make them feel like they belong. I think that's the sense of belonging is a huge, powerful thing. If you can make someone feel like they belong, that's going to create amazing loyalty, and that will open the door to building relationships.
Yeah, I would guess even just the name temp versus employee, the more you point out that they're a temp, the less included they're going to feel. So I think, finding words that don't differentiate, and they don't need a different color lanyard for your door passes.
They're a new member of your team. They're a new member of your team. That's all that people need to know. So.
Yeah, they're there to help, whether or not it's for 3 weeks or not. So yeah, I appreciate that. Let me see. I know I saw some other questions coming through. There's a lot of comments here. People coming from all over. We've got Europe, UK, San Jose, Pittsburgh, New York. Okay, Rebecca has a question. I lost it. Where'd you go, Rebecca? Okay. Can you share how you went about implementing when you had hurdles from those who don't buy in?
We had people laughing at us for the first 3 to 4 or 5 months. Oh, the culture committee, what do you all do? Just go in there and have fun and make jokes. It took a little bit of credibility of, like I said before, when we said that we committed to making sure that everyone got the same support from our committee, when, the proof is in the pudding, when we actually started taking action and showing, hey, we showed up for these events, and like, what's HR doing here on a Saturday? I said, culture committee's here to help out. We told you that. When they see members from other departments show up, they're like, why are you here? So all of a sudden they're seeing this and it's kind of like, well, all right, maybe I was wrong about this. So that definitely changed their mindset. Just seeing people in action. So that's a huge thing. If you have a committee that's committed and really believes in the mission that you're trying to, in the vision, you're going to get them to help you tremendously, because you don't want it to be an HR driven thing. You don't want it to be a marketing driven thing. You want it to be a employee driven thing. It let them say, we had a voice in this. We had a say in this. The other thing I will say, which is I think the obvious one, is always get your CEO or your leaders to support it. Get them, they don't need to be in the meetings, but get them to show up to the events. Get them, even if it's just a few of them, not all of them have to, but our CEO jump in, and he likes to be like secretive. He'll like jump in and be quiet and not have his camera on. And then we'll notice like, oh, Francois here. He just joined us. And like, oh, I was watching y'all. I was having fun watching y'all play. It was good. He
just wants to hear what's happening, I'm sure. Yeah.
People appreciated that. And when they see other of the senior leaders jump on, they say, oh, that's cool to see them, because I don't get to see them in a casual setting. And again, it's after hours. And our rule is everyone's at home. No one's driving. So feel free to have a beverage if you like, of your choice, whatever alcoholic or non. We're not going to judge. Just, we say, to drink maximum for the call. Let's call it that, to be safe, but again, we can't mandate that. They can do whatever they want, but we open that door so people feel like they can be themselves. And when you let your hair down, for example, like, you tend to show the real you a little bit more, and people can resonate that. When people found out that they had commonalities, when they were common Star Trek fans or common Bridgerton fans, common, reality TV fans, all these things that brought them together, that before these people never spoke to each other. So it's finding that commonality, but getting that leadership support is huge. And again, show that committee is there for the entire organization, not just for one select group.
I'm sure everyone is wondering, because not everyone has a CEO like yours that is all on board with this. What tips do you have, just using your 25 years of experience, talking to the leadership team about HR stuff? What advice do you have for those on the call who have a CEO who's not super on board with things like this?
That's a great question. And I'm going to give you some tips that I've given my current CEO and quite a few that I haven't given my current CEO, because I don't want him thinking I've used all this on him, because I haven't. But he knows what I've used on him.
I'll expect a bonus later.
But first and foremost, okay, so there's two different types, or multiple types of CEOs that you're going to run into. Some that are just, what, you all take care of it. I don't want to be involved. Just tell me you're doing it. Then you have the ones that are really want to get involved. They want to be a part of it. They think it's important. And then you have the ones that are in the middle of the ground. They're like, yeah, I know it's important. I don't have time for it, but I do value it. And I want the employees to have this, but they're not participating. They're not in there. So for those three types of, what I would start off with is the one that is completely resistant to it. If they do truly believe that there's some value at all, there's ways to do it. And if your voice is something that they respect, or there's somebody else in leadership team that they respect, having a conversation. And I always say, bring somebody with you, come in a pair, to talk about the topic, so that that leader or CEO doesn't think it's just your personal opinion, Right. So bring in somebody else with you that is as passionate as you, saying, hey, we really think it'd be important for you to kind of step it up a little bit and help us really show how important it is by showing up to some of these events, talking about it during your town halls, commenting on it when we post it on social media, whatever it is, that's showing your support. That's helped, especially when you recognize, because I think, again, for whether you're in HR or in other positions, sometimes you are very effective with your voice and sometimes you're not. Mm-hmm. I know when I'm my voice is not going to be effective with certain topics, and I need to bring someone, I need some backup and that's going to help. When you have that middle of the ground person that he sees the value or she sees the value and they appreciate it and they know it, but they just maybe haven't jumped that hurdle to really get invested or actually, get involved. Something that I've done that's tend to work is I've shared articles. I'll give you an example, talking about emotional intelligence. One of the CEOs I worked for was like, yeah, whatever. it's I'm hearing about it. Whatever. It's not that I'm not that worried about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to put an article of CEOs that high emotional intelligence that were highly successful, and there were people on there like I think Elon Musk might, or I don't know if it was Elon Musk. It was, but
Yeah,
I take that back. I take that back. Jeff Bezos that's what it was. Just Jeff Bezos was one of them. But then there were like 3 other ones, and I just quietly put it in his inbox, and then I didn't say a word. And then a week later, I heard him quote something from the article, and I'm like, okay, you know what? He doesn't need to tell me that he heard me, but at least he read it, he saw it, and he's practicing it. So sometimes let them self-discover it themselves. Don't force it on them, because sometimes that self-discovery is what they need to actually take that leap to say, you know what, this is important enough for me, and I want to do it because I'm going to drive myself, not because somebody else is pushing me. And that's what you want. You want them to do it because they're driven. So helping them educate it, and that's just one tip that worked. But also, again, having other people share value or sharing about the competition. Oh, if the competition isn't doing it, that just digs them a little bit. Like, well, then we got to do it too. Come on, we got to do this now.
Yeah.
And then you have the one that's all in. Don't take that for granted, because the one that's all in sometimes might just be like, oh, it's going really well, I'm going to step back a little bit, and they might step back a little bit too much. And sometimes they need that friendly reminder. And I always, like my CEO, who has been absolutely wonderful, he didn't show up for the last 2 game nights. And I said, you know what? I was like, where have you been? Like, people were wondering where you were. Like, show up if you can for a little bit. He's like, all right, I'll try. And he did. And he just needed that reminder. So I think it's also just being that team player and that support person to that CEO, especially if you know they're an ally for it, to help them remember, because we all need reminders sometimes.
Yeah, this is very true. These are great ideas. I think definitely I come across, when I'm brought into companies for consulting to help them solve a culture problem, it is often, it's just been a matter of time where HR has been having these conversations for quite a while. And then, it's just, they have to come to their own, a
different voice sometimes.
They have to come to their own readiness for it. All right. We have tons of other questions. If you have the time, I have the time. All right, let's do it. Okay. I'm scrolling up so I can hit all of these. More people saying where they're from. We got Athens, Greece.
Wow.
And I saw we're at Central Africa. Okay. There's so many comments in here. This is awesome. People are saying they love in your ideas, connection through storytelling. Storytelling. Okay. Emily says, what is something you found to be successful for candidate experience? When you onboard a new employee, what have you seen that they really appreciate?
So I'm going to share something about pre-pandemic that I am bringing back, but I will definitely, it was a wow factor, and it's something that we still give them something. But what I used to do for the onboarding experience that really made them feel like, wow, this is actually possibly the culture that I'm hearing about. Because, in an interview, we can say all we want, but until they see it in live. So first of all our training that we do for sales and service, let me say this first, we apply that to it's all about building relationships. So we don't use the word sales and service in our training. It's actually called delivering relationships the Signal way. And that relationship building applies to our employees, applicants, our members, and our community, right? So we want to make sure that relationship from the get-go. So the same philosophy that we apply, we want to apply it to the applicants so that they have a good experience. So that includes with the approach and the delivery of the first interaction, making sure that they get quick responses. But the onboarding, getting to the onboarding, when they join us and they're in orientation, what we send out, besides sending out the offer letter and the benefits information, all that, we also send out a getting to know you form. Simple form. What are your favorite movies? What are your favorite food, snacks, drinks, things of that sort, right? And with that, we make a welcome basket. His one person's favorite thing was M&Ms and kombucha. Well, we had M&Ms, kombucha in there, but then we also had our Signal swag in there too, and then some just generic healthy snacks and stuff like that. Always had some water in there. Had a nice like a Yeti jug in there for them to water in. So And that little welcome package that was customized, and if they had pets, we put dog snacks in there as well. If they had a cat, same thing. What impressed them wasn't the fact that they had a welcome basket. It was that it was customized.
Right.
They're like, wow, you thought about my dog, or you got my favorite drink. This is so hard to find. How'd you find it? Things like that. It shows that we care about them and we want them to hit the ground running from day one.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I will be honest, we spent probably about maybe $25 per basket. And I'll get like cheap wicker baskets from Target. It might be even plastic ones, because when you have like 10 people in orientation, I want to get the same baskets, or at least 2 of the same. So don't go crazy on the basket, because I let them keep the basket, first of all. They always a lot of them will bring it back. Oh, here's your basket. Like, no, that's yours. When we get the wicker ones that aren't that expensive, or sometimes the plastic ones, you put in some paper in there, and then you put all the stuff in there, you'll make it look nice. And I'm somebody who does it well. So if I can do it, anyone can do it.
That's awesome.
The other tip I would say with the onboarding is making sure that communication, that they know before they get here what to expect, when they get here what to expect with the first week, and what's going to happen when they get to the department. And the introduction during the pandemic, a lot of people aren't in the office. So it's crucial to make sure that they feel welcome. So we actually, on our town halls every Friday, we have them every Friday with our CEO, and a lot of us join to talk about different things. We always make sure on orientation Mondays that new hires join on that Friday, and they get to tell the credit union a little bit about themselves. And all the credit union gets to chat back and share, if there's a fishing person, I love fishing. So they already immediately have people in the credit union they know that have common interests. So, yeah.
Those are some great tips. And for anybody listening, please feel free to add in your tips too, and I'll share them out, or I guess you can read them too. I wanted to share one. It looks like you had to let your dog out.
The dog started coming in.
For one of our clients, we created a buddy system, which I know a lot of organizations do, but we find often organizations do those buddy systems very informally, which is not the greatest way to go about it, because then the buddy doesn't really know exactly what their role is. And so what we did was created a little workbook so that the buddy and the new hire have this kind of matching workbook, but it's the buddy version versus the new hire version. And so then the buddy has this sort of agenda that they go through over the first couple weeks with different activities and taking them out to lunch. So they kind of have this checklist. And then they have like a little quiz where they do a little kind of verbal quiz about things this new hire's learned. And we've gotten a ton of really great feedback on that.
I think that's awesome. And
Thank you.
One thing I'll say is, especially if you're doing remote still and you have people working remote, welcome your senior leadership team to meet the new hires. Even if, some are in person, some are remote, you can do it hybrid and half. That's also powerful too, because our CEO comes in person for orientation. He makes a point to make sure he meets them in person, because he might not see him, in person again, especially working remotely. So he wants to make sure that that initial impression is so important, because I always tell our new hires, I want you to walk in here with your eyes wide open, all your questions answered, so you feel good about it. And that's what we all should be doing. So any way you can do that, I think is going to help.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a couple other questions. So I'm going to combine two. So Sarah and Roe are both asking a little bit about similar things. So Sarah says, what can you do as a middle manager to improve team employee experience when upper leadership is creating the toxic culture? I'm going to couple that with Roe's question about implementing inclusion if leadership doesn't believe in it. And so I have some answers and thoughts, but you go first.
Well, and that is challenging. And I will say, my first answer is don't run. If it's important to you, you might be the catalyst that creates change. So keep that in mind, because we're all leaders, regardless of your title. You can be a leader. It doesn't matter what your title is. You can be a leader. And if something that is passionate for you, and leadership isn't, as long as they're not pushing back and saying, no, we're not doing it. If they're just not making it a priority, they might welcome someone taking the reins saying, hey, could I start doing this, creating an ERG group? Or I had somebody who came to me, even with our culture, again, our culture is not perfect. It is always evolving. It will never reach, utopia. We always are going to have to continually work on it. So,
yes.
And so one of our middle managers, she came to me And she said she wanted to do something for her team, but for wellness and for culture. So on her own, we now for those of you who have Microsoft Office, and if you all use Microsoft Teams, there's a thing called Yammer through Microsoft. It's just a social media feed, but it's internal, and you can use it with your employees and externally too if you wanted to. But if you do it internally, only your employees will see it. So we opened that up, and she's like, "I want to create a Yammer group for a book club." I'm like, "Go for it." And he goes, "And by the way, my team, I'm going into every hour, everyone's on headsets. They're on the call center. I want them to get up every hour and do a walk around with their headsets and using the stretchy bands you gave us to stretch and get some steps in every hour on the hour so they aren't sitting too much." And I said, "That is awesome." Well, I took her leadership example and I just promoted it to the rest of the company. Mm-hmm. Now she's like, "You make me look like a brown nose," or I go, "No, I'm highlighting you for being a strong leader." Yeah. You're not sucking up to Felipe's initiative. You're sucking up to you're buying into the company's culture, and there's a difference. And that was a wow factor for a middle manager to take that initiative. So find out who in your company is that person that's open to it. It might be the HR person, maybe it's the CEO, maybe it's the CFO, maybe it's another leader. It doesn't matter, and get their thoughts and buy-in to let you try to lead it, and then grow it. And I think that's a great opportunity. Start off with your own department. If you're a middle manager, and just start off with your own department. And, I always say IT departments tend to have their own culture because they're usually behind locked doors. They're having fun in there. And they're always like, "Come out and join our culture," because they have a great culture, IT teams usually. So start off with your own team and then show what you can do. And people might be like, "Wait, I like that idea. We should do that for all departments." Let's say, and that will help grow it. So that's just one tip there. And the other thing I will say is, what was the other question about? I'm sorry.
How can you implement inclusion if leadership is the one that doesn't believe in it?
Yeah, if they don't believe in it, that's a big red flag. That's where if you think that they're open to, I want to choose my words carefully. If it's about their ego, giving them articles about other CEOs or other leaders that do buy into it, or showcasing and talking about, "Wow, look at what so and so is doing in their company, how successful they are," or again, your competition. That's going to make an impact of, look what they're doing, and show them on social media, find out what they're on their website or whatever, and see if you can find out how it's benefited them somehow.
Yeah. Look at their Glassdoor reviews versus ours.
Exactly. So you can find a measurement to show them, because again, they want some facts or stats. Find some measurement about, look at the number of followers they've had, or look at how many new members they've had since they started doing this program, whatever it may be. Give them something that's something that's worked for me in the past. But again, if they are against it and fighting it, that might be a red flag that you just might not be able to fight.
Yeah. And I echo everything you've been saying. So the one about kind of implementing inclusion if the top leadership's not in it, and same with the toxic culture. As a middle manager, you absolutely have the ability to create your own team culture. And in fact, when we come into toxic cultures, which is where a lot of our work is, and the leader finally wants to turn things around, we do have a whole training for managers and supervisors around their role in that, because I think organizations miss that. We have anti-harassment training or wellness programs or our DEI initiatives, but I just don't see a lot of companies doing kind of real management training on what are you supposed to be doing day in and day out to actively promote a positive, respectful, inclusive work environment, because it's not so obvious. And managers, you might be a really nice person, and so you have a nice culture just by way of that. But having those constant conversations about core values, or highlighting people on the team that did something simple and small, but it was impactful, and working with your team all the time, all day, every day on this is just a piece that organizations don't really do.
And that's a great point, because the we did leadership training in 2021. And in leadership training, what we incorporated, it was a 5-session course, and there were about 2.5 hours each day. So we didn't make it too long, but we made them rich with content. And one of the days was strictly about emotional intelligence, implicit bias, and I'm forgetting the third one right now, but microaggressions. Thank you. So, and we were actually shocked at how many people have not been introduced to implicit bias or microaggressions. We actually had to prove people right on the spot, and it wasn't in a negative way, but we showed people that they did actually have implicit bias without even realizing it. And so,
Right.
and so that has been a huge impact because, again, educating people on what they don't know sometimes and making them realize, look, you have one that you don't even realize you do. So maybe do some more soul searching and look at what you might be doing that might be hurting the culture or might be preventing people from approaching you. Because the other thing I'll say is you never know what a company is going to be like when you join them. Look, the toxic place I talked about, I had a friend that worked there. She's the one who I knew her from my previous job. I trusted her, and she didn't give me the whole story. So even then, when you think you have somebody on the inside that can tell you, it's definitely not a guarantee. But going back to the onboarding question or for candidates, one thing that I always recommend to people, I can say in interviews all I want about our culture and how engaged we are and how fun we are, but that's just what I'm sharing. I could be lying to you for all you know, just to get you hired or get you to join us. I always tell people that I'm interviewing, I said, before I share anything with you, I invite you to check out our YouTube channel. I always say, go to Signal Careers. It's a little orange logo. Look at our playlist because they're all grouped together. In the playlist, you'll be able to see our innovation, our employee engagement, our commitment to our community, and you'll actually see it in action. You'll see the proof in the pudding as I share you our examples of what we do. That's something that kind of, along with Glassdoor, seeing the reviews, you kind of get the validation there. Actually seeing, he talked about them doing this, and they're actually doing it, and they're having fun. Or, wow, I can't believe they're doing all this stuff with the community, with artwork, or whatever it was. And it just convinced them, wow, he's not lying. And I have a little more trust in somebody who I really don't know, who I just met. So I think giving those people the opportunity to see whether it's on social media, whether YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, LinkedIn, hopefully, whatever it is, definitely, promote your culture, promote your employees, highlight your employees.
Yes.
We have a marketing manager who just reached out to a branch employee who reached out to our marketing manager and said, can you all do a blog about this? And she's like, you seem really passionate about it. He goes, I am. He goes like, why don't you write the blog and send it to me? He wrote it so well. She didn't change it. She posted it and gave him full credit. And it's just a wonderful way to highlight. So I'm getting ready to do a post about this because it's a great way to recognize your employees. And he has nothing to do with the marketing realm. He just joined us, and he was actually an intern with us and has moved up a little bit. And so we're seeing a whole different side of him that we didn't know he had. Yeah. So that's just another opportunity to just open those doors for leaders that are listening. People have things that you don't know about. So
getting everyone involved or not cutting people off. I feel like we try to do some of that same stuff. We have my weekly e-newsletters. Everybody writes one, so they're not mine. It's the team's, and just doing things like that is fun. Well, we have a ton more questions, but we are also out of time. So Felipe and I will be back in the comments later, and we will be happy to answer them and continue the chat through the chat. And I just really appreciated all of the commentary. And Felipe, you have more interaction here on this show than I've probably had in a really long time. So either you have a fan base or we hit a really good topic that people.
I guess it was a topic because I think this is a hot topic for, everyone in the world has a workplace, usually even at home, it's a workplace. Yeah. So, but thank you so much, Catherine, for inviting me. I really enjoyed this, and it was really a pleasure.
It was a great chat. And I'll also say to everyone out there, this is networking at its finest, right? You and I met because I was a guest on another show and you were there and you had a comment where you talked about how you educate or you do these events around all of the different monthly events happening. And I thought I got to reach out to him and get him on my show. So that's the beauty of networking and LinkedIn.
And now we know each other better. It's just awesome. It's amazing.
Now we're best friends.
Exactly. Relationships grow, and now who knows what will happen in the future.
Yeah. Well, thanks all. We appreciate you being here, and everyone have a great rest of your day.